backstage.
Excuse me?
Ooh. Thank you, everyone, for being here at today's Chancellor's Forum on Vision. And I'm looking at that camera. If you who are here in person see me looking at that camera, that's because that is our online audience, and welcome to them too. So, vision. Oh, before we start, let me just say that here at UAF, on this space, we're on Tratieta, which is the traditional lands of the Dene people of the lower Tanana River. So, vision, I was thinking about vision. I think about vision a lot. And there is a lot of uncertainty right now. And we have to acknowledge that. This is a time where universities, institutions, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I thought, as I was thinking about today and thinking about, well, how do we think about vision in all of this kind of uncertainty and kind of dealing with things that have happened, dealing with things that haven't happened, in anticipation? What are we doing and where are we going? And I think about how important vision is in a time like this. And I think in 2018, when strategic planning at UAF was launched, the 2027, the work to create the strategic plan for 2027 was launched. And at that time, there was a group of about 80 people that got together and thought deeply about a series of questions about revitalizing academic programs. What would that mean for UAF? And being a Tier 1 research university, what would that mean for UAF? And we hear a lot, we talk a lot about R1 and R1 as an initiative. R1 is a piece of being a Tier 1 university, a top-level university. Part of that's R1, but R1 is not everything. It's part of it. And thinking about what does it mean to be global leaders in Alaska Native and Indigenous studies. And roughly 80 people, mostly faculty and staff. I don't think any of those groups had administrators specifically on them, thought about those questions. And throughout 2018 and 2019, came up with a strategic plan with those 6 goals. And many of those people since 2018 have been through a lot of thinking and planning and continue. Some of them have changed out. New people have joined. But over those years, the last 6 years, we have endured a lot. And I think about the uncertainty that this institution around the reorganization and the uncertainty about the budget. And when our budget was reduced significantly, that created a lot of uncertainty. And whether we were even going to be UAF, right? There was a conversation that we would be merged with UAA and UAS. That was a lot of uncertainty. And then COVID was a lot of uncertainty. I don't know, but a raise of hands for the people who are in the audience. How many people were here at the beginning of COVID? About 2/3. I don't know if you remember, right? One day, right, the governor called and said, the UAF is a remote institution. And we said, what does that mean? And how do we become a remote institution overnight? And it was over spring break, and we said, everybody, hold on, don't come back, because we got a lot of work to do, and you did it. And I think about the importance of the vision and the work that had been done by the strategic planning groups during all three of those phases, and the importance of, yeah, we have work to do, and we have students to serve, and research, and animals that are part of the research, and a ship that's out there sailing around somewhere. We have important work to do, and so the importance of the vision now, I think, is more than ever, and so it feels like this is just the right time, because there's things we don't know, but there's a lot of things we do know, and we can be at work at the things we do know. The other thing we know is that during uncertainty, there's always opportunity. And how do you recognize opportunity? We recognize opportunity in our work, and we say, there's some uncertainty here, there's some opportunity here. This is a chance for us to take advantage of that opportunity, to turn it from a threat to a strength, and to execute on that. And that's an opportunity that you only recognize if you're doing the work that you know is leading to your long-term vision. And when I think about what are the things we do know? And we've known this for a long time. And this is kind of there are good news and bad news here, right? So what you're looking at here is projected change in high school graduates between 2017 and 2036. And the bottom of the right scale is 3.5, the bottom of the vertical axis is 3.5 million, and the top is 4 million. So we're just looking kind of at a bracket, 3.5 million to 4 million students, and on the horizontal axis, on the left is 2017, and on the right is 2036. And the blue arrow is where we are today. What does this mean? This means that we know that the number of high school graduates in America, this is a national figure, is going to go down, and it's going to go down quite a bit. And you've heard me talk about this, hopefully you've heard me talk about this before. This is just a thing. And we've known it's a thing because we knew 12 years ago, not us, but we collectively knew 12 years ago how many people were in kindergarten. And we knew when they were in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade and 9th grade. So we know how many people are going to likely graduate in America next year and the year after that and the year after that, because they're all in some phase of that process. What we don't know is how many of these students are likely to go to college. And we do know that the trend has been fewer high school graduates are going to college in America as a percentage. So how do we take all that information and think about our vision and our goals and our strategic goals and how we understand kind of what our next actions are? And I think about, if you look at the first bump on the left side, the first little hill, the time between that first little hill and the peak, the number of high school graduates went up about 6%. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody offer a different number. It went up about 6%. And UAF's enrollment was about flat. Actually, Trothieta grew about 4%, and Headcount at the rural campuses kind of went down about that amount, and so we're about level in enrollment, with a greater percentage of our students kind of shifting from part-time to full-time, and a greater percentage shifting from Alaskans to US students. We're still predominantly Alaskans, but more and more students are coming to the lower 48, from the lower 48 to UAF to study full-time. That's been a slight shift. The kind of challenging news about this graph is that number is going down, number of high school graduates. The percent that are coming to college is going down. And what that's resulting in, which we've talked about before, is a consolidation of universities around the country. Growth of Arizona State, for example, which now I think has 140,000 students, rough numbers. Those are getting bigger. There's big, Amazon models and Walmart models and models for consolidation. We will always have Alaska as something that attracts people. We will always have Alaskans who seek college, but more and more we see students from outside of Alaska saying, Alaska is a place I want to be. Alaska is a place of opportunity for me, and that is a real opportunity for us amid all of this to grow enrollment. Our vision, and kind of shaped by the 6 strategic goals, all of the 6 strategic goals kind of speak to enrollment. Enrollment is critical to UAF. It's critical to any university for vitality. I think you all know my most favorite day of the year is move-in day, when all the students return to campus and they move into the residence halls. My second favorite day is commencement. But every day I get to look out my window and I see students walking across the old flag circle, I don't know what we call it anymore, the circle between Usabelli and Signers Hall. Students walking across there, walking over to the dining hall. You have to have students for vitality, and that's what we have at UAF. Enrollment grows that vitality. And equally important is financial stability that comes out of that enrollment. $40 million. Right now the state provides University of Alaska Fairbanks about $169 million. Students through tuition from around the world provide about $40 million. Increases in the number of students will help our financial stability and it'll help our financial strength, and that will allow us some space to invest in opportunities for UAF, for UAF's students. And research in Tier 1 being one of our strategic goals, becoming an R1 university. There's a lot of uncertainty around research right now, but research has for 100 years been, research at universities has been the basis of innovative development in the United States. DoD's research is largely done at universities. NIH's research is largely done at universities, as is NOAA's and as is NASA's. Universities around the country have been the place that research is done, and I think for us, because we're not going to probably have 140,000 students, being a research university continues to be a place a thing that makes us a destination, which helps enrollment, which also helps financial stability. So thinking about how do we kind of see these things come together at UAF, and how do we keep focused on what are the important things for us in this time? You have heard me talk, hopefully, a lot about infrastructure, and why is infrastructure so important? Right there, that road in front of the Tanana Drive, in front of the Patty Center, we refer to that as Main Street. You think about all the buildings that we've built most recently. Our newest building is Usabelli, which is a research building. It's full of research labs and teaching. And the building before that, I think, was Muri. Muri is a research building, a teaching building. Before that, I think was Bird, which is a research building. And before that, we get into Reichardt, research and teaching. And before that, Akasofu, which is a research building. We haven't built a dorm a residence hall since before I was born. And we think about what are the things, and I'm old, I'm just saying. That's why I wear a hat, see? That's not really why I wear a hat. But thinking about what is it that causes a student from Alaska, from Fairbanks or Salcha, or from Los Angeles or Sacramento to come to UAF, get in an Uber at the airport, drive over for one of our Inside Out, we don't call it Inside Out anymore, but one of our campus preview days. What do they see at UAF that says, yeah, this is the place for me. This is the belonging place for me. This place has a place for me to live that I'm going to be comfortable in. It has a place for me to go to athletics events, things to do on campus. This is the impetus behind the whole idea of Main Street. How do we be a place where students walking on campus say, yeah, this is where I belong, this is my home. And so, out years, we have this hockey rink. We have the Carlson Center, it's serving our purpose. They just put a bunch of money into it to make it better for us. But in the long term, it would be good for us to have a place on campus where students, faculty, and staff could walk over. If you were not, was anybody at the, well, I'll just raise my hand. I was at the UAF UAA Gov Cup finale on Saturday, and I hope lots of you were there. I know some of these people were there. There were 3,400? Yep. 3,400 people there chanting UAF almost the whole time. There was so much energy and so much passion about UAF. And when the Nanuks won the Governor's Cup, and the student section was bananas, and all the hockey players, one by one, went over and saluted the students, and it was just this special moment that those students and those hockey players and that this community will remember for a long time, and that is connecting. So some point having that activity on campus benefits us. Having a hotel on campus, we won't build the hotel, but we'll have a hotel built so that your peers, colleagues, researchers, teachers, students, prospective students can come and stay on campus. They could eat on campus. The emergency services, which is a rebuild of our fire station with other emergency services added. U Park Elementary, which is in that bottom corner, is actually about to undergo renovations to become a daycare so that we can provide childcare for our faculty, staff, and students. And then the old food service, Lola Tilly, becoming a welcome center. Lathrop Hall will probably keep, but some of the other residence halls down on this lower Main Street area will go because they are just beyond their useful life, and they have $30 million of deferred maintenance. They are expensive just to keep alive, and they're not kind of modern residences. So how do we make this the place for the next 30 years? We need some changes. And then undergraduate housing and graduate housing, kind of adding housing next to the Moore Bartlett Scarland. There's a lot of energy for housing at UAF in our Board of Regents. I think there is an interest in updating housing that is more than 60 years old. I'm not 60 in case you're doing the math, almost. And then the planetarium, of course, and the Trothieta Indigenous Studies Center up on the hill, creating this environment for students and visitors for this to be a place of belonging for them. And of course, research, we've got updated Arctic health in the future, and then addressing kind of some of the deferred maintenance challenges in O'Neill, and then connecting some of the research facilities so that our Tier 1 researchers continue to have modern research facilities to do their work. All of these elements kind of come together around this long-term vision and those original 6 strategic goals that help build for us enrollment, help build for us research, both of those things building on each other and creating financial stability. And again, I think this is the time to keep focused on those things just like we did in the pandemic and just like we did in the reorg and just like we did in the budget, and allow us to see some opportunity. So these are your vice chancellors, and they are here to answer questions. We will take questions from online. There, at the end, there will be a QR code that you can scan and ask questions. There's 2 mics in the room, and I'm gonna get the conversation started with a few questions that I have for them, starting with Vice Chancellor Guthrie. This question: how will Alaska experience the national landscape of higher education, and what are students looking for?
Thank you.
I think you have a mic somewhere.
I'm supposed to be a lapel mic. I think it's on now? Oh, fantastic. Look, magic. Thank you for the question. Let's see, how will the changing landscape affect Alaska? Well, for students, it's going to be a great time of opportunity. Alaskan students, national students. There's going to be extra supply of college seats available for a limited population of students as it declines. And as Chancellor White said, more students or fewer students are going to be seeking post-secondary opportunities. What does that mean for us here in Fairbanks at UAF? That means that there's increasing pressure on us to be at the top of our game at national standards. So how do we, recognizing that we need to always serve our local students effectively, we need to serve the Anchorage, Mat-Su, rural Alaska, all of the traditional demographics that have always attended UAF, how do we stay competitive and become more competitive in lower 48? That's something we've already been doing, we've already been working on that, but that's going to mean continuing improvement and process changes for registrar, financial aid, admissions, counseling, advising, all of that, all those student services, both on the curricular and the co-curricular side, the whole package of who we are. And I think it's really great we're talking about vision today because it's directly related to this. Is what is our vision? How do we attain that? And how does that resonate with potential students? If we nail that, which I think we already have been doing for a long time, UF's always been a destination university, but the better we lean into that and the better we sort of get that clean resonance, I don't think we'll have enrollment challenges if we can get in front of enough students. So it was a 2-parter. I had a double challenge question here. What are students looking for? Some of you have college-aged kids, and you know that's complicated. And you yourself was a college, and you know it's complicated for you too. Like, what are you looking for? But we know 2 things that every high school graduate is looking for, is a modern experience and modern facilities. Like, we can all agree that's essential to being relevant in that enrollment landscape. And so we just saw the slides, the master plan for us. We know we need new housing. We know we need a better welcome center. We know we need great facilities to attract potential students. And that's part of it. Is if you're from any of the 49 states other than Alaska, and you're aware of UAF as a place to be, as a place of opportunity, how do we communicate to you who we are, what's our vision, so that you can say, oh yeah, that's a place that I would imagine would be a STEM research university in Alaska. That's the place I want to be, with the most amazing fine arts program in Alaska, the most amazing humanities programs in Alaska, business, you name it. This is the place for you to come to enjoy Alaska. And how do we kind of hit that vision perfectly and then lean into it so it resonates with potential students? I don't think we'll have an enrollment challenge. One of the things we've done in the last couple of years is try and broaden our what to call enrollment funnel. Enrollment terms, you're always winnowing potential students, right? You start with a population of potential students and you move towards students who actually show up. And what we've really been trying to do is broaden that funnel greatly. And this year, we have 5,000 applications as of today for fall 25. Last year at this time, we had about 2,500. The year before that, we had half of that. So we've been doubling our applications year on year, so very successfully broadening the funnel. How do we deliver on communicating to those potential students who said, yeah, I might be interested in UAF? How do we communicate to them, this is who we are. This is the opportunity, this is the value we offer you. Come here, you're gonna have an amazing time. If we can get in front of more students, we will not have an enrollment problem. That's our collective challenge, is to deliver on that vision and communicate that to potential students.
Thanks. Vice Chancellor Queen, finance question. So all of the pictures I showed are buildings, new buildings or rehabs or renovation. How do we pay for all that? You're going to pay for it, right?
Yeah, that's literally the million-dollar question. Thanks for the question. And I would say that, the master plan as a vision document contains, a myriad of projects that the Chancellor highlighted today. And each one distinctly has a different funding plan and things that we'll put together to try to then execute on those facilities. And so there's not one common broad swath strategy for the way that we pay for all of those things. It's a big long-term plan that's meant to happen over, the next decade or several decades. But certainly when we pick apart each of those, different projects lend themselves to different ways to then put together funding and financing to help bring those to fruition. And so in some cases, like the Chancellor mentioned, the child care facility that we're looking at renovating a half wing of Old U Park, that we have federal funding in hand that came through the federal delegation to help us create that renovation. And then that's something that we will continue to fill out through, in that case, hopefully as part of the FY26 budget outcomes, deferred maintenance funding that will help take care of the rest of the project. And in other cases, we are seeking grants where that, like the Arctic Emergency Services Center, we have put in for several grants on that. We haven't seen one come through yet, but it lends itself to other types of opportunities where we're striving to see one of those grants come to fruition, and then we may have opportunity to then couple that with additional state funding at a lower level or some other way to then leverage that through partner agencies or industry. And so another example for the housing projects, that is a type of arrangement that really lends itself to a public-private partnership type of model, or you hear people refer to it as P3. And so those are things where, if there are industry partners or developers that would like to partner with UAF for those things, we're penciling models like that to look at, what level of equity does the university need to commit for a project like that to help make the numbers pencil, and then where does potentially a partner come to the table to help us build out and renovate the housing plan. And so, there's an array of examples out there. One of the ones that's also worth highlighting, the Chancellor mentioned the planetarium. That's the single largest private gift that the university has ever received that will help bring that to fruition. And it's amazing that there are people with that level of passion for the institution that will help us along the way. And so there are many bright spots as part of this that it'll be part of a multi-tiered plan, and where we may look at deferred maintenance or facilities modernization funding with support from the state, or we may look at private, corporate, industry, or other types of financing or funding models to help piece funding together as part of the long-term plan. But each one will vary based on the nature of the project, and we're looking at that kind of holistically as we step through the plan.
Thank you. So lots of different strategies that can go parallel. Provost Prakash, so fundamentally, the things, the buildings, places for students to live, things for students to do, fundamentally they're here for an education. They're here because we have quality academic programs, and will continue to come here for our quality academic programs. So talk to the assemblage about kind of our strategic goal of revitalizing key academic programs and how this helps us compete in the changing landscape of higher education.
Yeah, thank you, Chancellor White. Our key academic programs, academic programs, our faculty are key players in designing and delivering the academic programs, with a lot of support also coming from, say, our Center of Teaching and Learning and our staff and other units. What we do is we look at where the market is, what the demand in the market is. We do surveys, we work with companies, we work with industry partners. We get feedback from students on what the students are needing and what they're looking for. And to be ahead in the space, our programs need to be modern, and they need to be aligned with what students are looking for. More and more, our students are looking for a broader-based education that positions them to think deeply, help them to solve complex problems that they'll see in the world, and also to look at programs that will make them more employable. And so as we look at our academic programs, we're constantly starting new programs, we're sunsetting some old ones that don't have as much market demand, and then we're modernizing the other ones that through our program review that goes on. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, we used to have a program in petroleum engineering. As we hear from our industry partners and our students, more students want just broader energy resource education. So petroleum will remain a part of it, but we also talk about alternate energy, and we've got a new degree, BS in energy resource engineering. Similarly, to look at a holistic view, for example, in our education master's and PhD level, we've started an Earth System Science program which looks at a holistic view at the Earth system. And then we have specialized tracks where the students want to go deeper. Just a couple of examples on those. In our community and technical college, we have the LPN program, which is for licensed practical nurse, because that is a high demand area where our students feel the need. So those are the programs, and those are the kind of programs that we continuously develop, modernize, and also use newest technology and pedagogy as we work towards it.
Thanks. And I know I see Senate President Bill Tito and Senate Vice President Leah Berman here. Thank you for being here, because all of the new programs and the thinking, the hard thinking and approving around revitalizing academic programs goes through Faculty Senate. So thank you for your work there. Laura Connor, Interim Vice Chancellor for Research. We've talked a lot about becoming R1. You know, that metric is a high metric. It's going to be a challenge to reach it, but kind of talk to us about why the pursuit is important, because we're still pursuing it, even if it turns out to be a big gap. Talk to us about that process.
Yeah, thanks. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Thanks for the question, Chancellor White. Yeah, you know, R1, it's really a lot about reputation. We know that students from across the nation are attracted to coming to R1 institutions. And so if we become an R1, we can expect that we might experience some increases in enrollment based on the fact that students want to come to institutions that have high standing. And in fact, some of the analyses that have been done bear this out. And so when you look at some similarly sized institutions to UAF that have recently made the transition from R2 to R1, there is evidence that that transition had a positive impact on enrollment, both for undergraduate and graduate students. And you know, the thing is that it's not just about the numbers, right? We're actually supporting the dreams of these students. All of us had an educational experience or are having an educational experience that's supporting your dreams. And so I think that's a really important piece of this. So we have this idea that probably if we become R1, we'll have increases in enrollment. There's other aspects to the way that R1 might impact both our institution and our community as well. So we will probably be able to continue to recruit amazing faculty. We have many amazing faculty already who are incredibly productive, and we think that that is going to help us attract more faculty that will feed back into the research enterprise. There's also been analyses of the communities that have reached R1 status in terms of economic markers in the community, and we know that job growth and GDP often increase in communities where some of these institutes that have made the switch from R2 to R1 stand. I think the really exciting thing is that we have, like I just said, we have an amazing research enterprise already, and we're more than there in terms of our research enterprise with respect to our research expenditures. You know, it's $50 million is the cutoff for research expenditures, and last year it was $220 million in research expenditures. And so we're more than there. We have a very vibrant, very successful research enterprise, and we can continue to grow that even beyond that. So once we are able to reach R1, I think that we're going to see a lot of the same benefits that other communities that have made that jump up from R2 to R1 have seen.
Thanks, Laura. I have one more question, which is for Vice Chancellor for Rural Community and Native Education, Charlene Stern. And then I have some questions from you or from the interweb somewhere. But before I get to those, Charlene, how is the Trothieta Indigenous Studies Center important to the vision, and where does it fit?
Thank you, Chancellor White. So as many of you know, UAF has been currently fundraising and planning for the future Trothieta Indigenous Studies Center for a number of years. And as you can see by the graph, it's going to be located between the Museum of the North and the Reichart Building. Trothieta is a lower Tanana Dene name for the ridge that UAF sits on, and it refers to the wild potato plant that has historically grown here. And I remember when I was starting off as a doctoral student at UAF in 2011, first hearing about this vision for Trothieta. And at the time, I would say it was, really limited among some of the Alaska Native faculty, staff, and students who heard the late Chief Peter John of Minto talk about Trothieta and its relationship to knowledge sharing and the tribes of this area. And at that time, it was a vision that was kind of shared, I think, amongst that group. And now, today, 14 years later, I am very proud that it is a vision for all of UAF, and not just UAF, actually, but the entire University of Alaska. It is UAF's #1 capital priority. It is one of the top priorities for the system itself, and that's because of the commitment of folks up here and all of you to really make sure that Troth happens and becomes part of the broader vision for us as an institution. UAF has been deeply invested in Indigenous programming for many years. Some of our programs, like Rural Student Services, are over 50 years old. The Rural Alaska Honors Institute, over 40 years old. We have our 5 rural campuses that have long and deep histories with serving the regions and the students across Alaska. And so we have the programs, and we've been developing the people and the talents and the expertise in disciplines like Alaska Native Studies, Alaska Native Languages, rural development. We have all of that. What we really lack is the place. And so Troth to us is, that place that's going to be that center, a one-of-a-kind, innovative hub that's going to have not just student services, but academic programs and also research programs, because of course now the College of Indigenous Studies has the Center for One Health Research. And so, when you look across other institutions of higher ed that have kind of similar types of conceptual buildings, they kind of are a little bit one-dimensional. They really, serve students in support areas, but they don't have all of the other aspects that Troth will have. And so we're really excited about that. For those of you that maybe don't know, I think as a result of all of these investments that UAF has made over time, nearly a quarter of our student body is Alaska Native and American Indian. And that is huge for a public institution, and it's something that we're very proud of. So when I think about, why Troth, I think it comes down to a couple things. One is it really is important to recognize the place and what it's always been and the future that it will have as it continues its relationship with the university, and just recognizing it and uplifting it. It's also about investing in educational outcomes for Indigenous students in terms of retention, but also the thing to get to Laura's point is that it has the real potential to contribute to UAF's reputation across the globe, nationally. We really want UAF to be a flagship for Alaska Native and Indigenous Studies. We are already the leader in the state. Our next step is to be the leader that the globe needs us to be, and Troth will help us do that.
Thank you. Contributing to enrollment. All right. I have a couple questions here, first I've got 2 of them, and there's probably more bundled into these, because if there's similar questions, they get bundled. And so you might not, if you asked a question, you might not hear it exactly because it might be paraphrased with several others. But this question, have we done an assessment of changes we do know about, such as the NIH F&A cut, and do we know what percentage of our research funding is affected by that change? And is the UAF vision still realistic in the environment of NIH and other federal sources? And the answer to all of that is yes, in that yes, we do an assessment. We are a member, UAF is a member of the APLU, the Association of Public Land Grant Universities. So all of the land grant universities join this association, and the association has a group of CEOs, presidents, and chancellors who meet on these issues and research, VCRs, and finance and admissions. These are groups that talk, and then, so APLU as an organization was part of the suit to kind of put an injunction in NIH reduction to 15%. So that is, just so you know, that is in a temporary restraining order, so that's not been put into effect. General Counsel, UA's General Counsel, which we look to every single day, provides information on here's what happened, here's what the injunctions that have happened, here's how that affects our business. Vice Chancellor Queen has been working with our federal delegation to produce a list of all projects at UAF that would be affected by all these changes so that they know, so that that can be communicated to our delegation. So we have a kind of ongoing assessment of financial risk, financial exposure, what's happening in the courts, what's happening in what we see and what we get. You know, I think it's useful to think there is going to be a lot more. I mean, we are expecting announcements about NOAA or NASA. We're expecting to hear announcements about Department of Education, Department of Energy. All those things will create kind of uncertainties, but Council is looking at those, looking at the legality of those, looking at how we should proceed in following our legal obligation to the law and to our contracts and our contractors, and as a grantee. At the same time, you know, we are doing assessments of, okay, if this happens, then what do we do and how do we manage and who do we contact for assistance? So that is happening, and we have a UAF website with frequently asked questions, excuse me, about these uncertainties and how we're addressing them. And I think still, you know, we will be successful by keeping our eye on the prize and saying, yes, there are a lot of externalities right now, things we don't know, but we have the appropriate kind of people, the lawyers looking into those and advising us, and we will advise you. We have meetings with General Counsel for each of the areas on understanding, you know, what we do next. But the more that we can focus on, you know, how do we think long-term about enrollment, about research, about what the opportunities that this particular moment in time presents, and that will keep us, I think, you know, moving in the right direction and able to take advantage of the time. And I think that gives this other question that I got, which is, okay, so looking forward, right? What actions are we taking now or in the future to improve outreach to prospective students in the lower 48? What are we doing?
Oh, that's
for you.
That's a huge question.
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
That's a big question. Thank you for that question. Whoever asked that, thank you. We're doing a lot of stuff. We are revolutionizing the enrollment enterprise at UAF month by month, day by day. The first thing we did that was probably the biggest thing out of the gate is we joined the Common App. This was last summer, summer 23. We went live in the fall of 23 for fall 24. That's where we got that first doubling of our enrollment applications. The basic premise there is it only costs, like, you know, Common App is a nonprofit organization. It's like $15,000 to join. They were overjoyed to have us there because we're unique. We are University of Alaska Fairbanks, and they get in front of millions of American high school graduates. That broadened our funnel, if you will, and then for this most recent cycle, so fall 24 now, we were there early enough in the cycle to really capture the full enrollment journey of those graduating high school students. That's why we've doubled again. Common App is a big thing for UF. In addition, we have a higher ed post-secondary enrollment partner called EAB. It's the sort of the national premier enrollment partner for many of our educational providing peers. They've been helping us a lot with modernizing admissions systems and standards, advising systems and standards, really just providing advice. In addition, they do direct marketing to students for us. So we have an enrollment contract with them. We selected high-performing high school students across the nation with their advice, where geographically, where they think they might be most likely to enroll at UAF, and we target marketed them. You know, the Geico commercials where, you know, everywhere you go, you see the Geico lizard. We are Geico to those students. Everywhere they go, they see UAF. And that's great, that's bearing fruit. The application process through EAB is called Summit Seekers. So we have Common App, we have Summit Seekers, and we've joined a couple other direct enrollment platforms or other enrollment partners to really just where we find value in getting in front of high school seniors. In addition, we're doubling down on the usual things we do in Alaska. We do a counselor fly-in from rural counselors to Fairbanks to show them what we have to offer. We have recruiters in Anchorage and Matsu talking to high school students graduating there. We're in the local high schools. So what are we doing? We're doing everything. And if you're not part of it, if you want to be, please join us. If you're faculty, if you're staff, one of the recommendations we got in the most recent EAB report was there is a deficit at UAF in terms of the entire enterprise being involved in enrollment. And so those doors are open. We would love to engage with you. Enrollment's everything. It is so exciting to talk to a potential student or family and see them make that connection in their brain, like, yeah, I'm going to be a Nanook, and you can be a part of that. So thank you. Great question.
I have a question. Have you asked the students at UAF what they want, and what do they think the future of UAF students would want? There are multiple kind of tiers to that question, and beginning with, of course, Vice Chancellor Guthrie, and I meet with the ASUAF president and vice president monthly. They are part of the Chancellor's cabinet and provide input in the Chancellor's cabinet about the needs and interests. We also meet as a core cabinet biannually with the full ASUAF, including the Senate, the Student Senate, and I think we're having pizza and bowling with the Student Senate, ASUAF when is it? March 18th. So there are multiple venues for direct communication from students to leadership, and I know that students talk to faculty, and we hear some of that. I think another way that we hear about what are students generally wanting, and that is through, Owen mentioned EAB, which is a national consulting firm that does analysis of what our students vote with their feet, and they vote with their money. They go places that have amenities, and they do analyses, kind of big scale analysis of what are the things that are attracting students, what are students looking for by what we see their behavior is, and that helps inform us on a broad scale beyond what the admissions counselors are hearing, beyond what the recruiters are hearing, and beyond what the students themselves are saying. So all of those elements, I think, contribute to an understanding of what is kind of needed today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. I've got some more questions, but go ahead.
Thank you. Do I have to do something to turn this on?
Nope, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Albo Biltito, President of the Faculty Senate. Chancellor White, as you've indicated, we've had some tough years behind us. We've all had to work harder, dig deeper. Now with the federal mandates coming down, that's only going to get worse. What are you doing to support us all under those conditions?
Yeah, so our goal, I mean, enrollment research leads to financial strength. Well, our goal is to invest in UAF. And investing in UAF takes resources. One of our challenges over the last few years is that we're very dependent on state allocation. The less dependent, and I'm not saying less money from the state, but enrollment would lead to greater financial stability because it would lead to a lower percentage of our budget that annually fluctuates. Our budget annually fluctuates depending on what the governor does and what the legislature does. We don't have control over that, but we do have control over the things, the programs, the opportunities, the facilities that we offer students. And so we do have a large impact, a large role to play in what students, how many students come to UAF. That would lead to greater financial stability, and I think that would lead to an opportunity, more opportunity for us to invest in new programs at UAF. Right now we do invest in new programs, but it's largely through strategic reallocation. You know, I can remember, I've been here 30 years where we had a budget surplus coming from the state. And the challenge that we had at that time was sifting through programs, which is when the Planning and Budget Committee that many of you have served on, the Planning and Budget Committee was created to determine what are the best programs to invest in with new money. But you know, those days are past. Our opportunity for funding to provide stability, to invest in new programs, is through growing enrollment, which is good for students, but it's also good for faculty and staff. And as you know, we've, of course, several years ago shifted the percentage of every tuition dollar that goes to the programs that they're taking. That is good for students because then they know their dollars are going to the college that they're taking classes in, but it also gives the college an opportunity to say, we're increasing students, we have now the resources through that tuition share to invest in the programs that those students are taking. You know, I think, you know, what are we doing? I mean, I think a lot of the question around, you know, trying to assess spending the cycles to figure out what is going on and how are we going to respond and how are we going to minimize impact on the day-to-day work that has to be done by a lot of the uncertainty. So, you know, that's I mean, I commend this group. They spend late hours every day doing that assessment, working with council to figure out how do we address all of the stuff so that faculty and staff can do the important work that they're doing. Thank you for asking a question. And there's a mic there and a mic there or online. And I've got another question about workforce development. Talk about somebody, and I don't know if Vice Chancellor Stern, you want to take this, or Vice Chancellor Guthrie. What about workforce development, and what's the opportunity there?
Sure, I'll start. I'll start quick and then pass it off. You know, a lot of questions about what do our students want. Do we talk to students? One of the great things about UF is we have a lot of different students, and we have a lot of students who are really showing up for our workforce programs. We have students who are not interested in the 4-year undergraduate residential experience. They're interested in 2-year or below occupational endorsement. They want to get to work. And we have new leadership at CTC. Charlene and I work together closely on, and with the new leadership to try and think about, okay, what are the opportunities for program modernization and revitalization in the workforce sector? Great partners in that, and so much opportunity for us there. Alaska's changing, the workforce is changing, the needs of the workforce are changing, and we're a part of it, and that's really exciting. I'll pass it off to Charlene.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Guthrie. So one of the things that some folks maybe don't know is my role here at UAF includes overseeing both the College of Indigenous Studies and our 5 rural campuses, but also the Community and Technical College. And CTC is near and dear to my heart. I've had many family members go through the various programs at CTC, and over the last couple of years, it's been a real joy. We have a number of commencements throughout the year because our programs, some of them are more cohort, more intensive. And, you know, as Provost Prakash mentioned, we recently spun off an LPN program, which, you know, was no small feat to go through the steps and the accreditation and all of that, but to be able to graduate our first inaugural class of LPN students and to know that there's such a high demand in the industry for those graduates is incredible. We also just recently had a law enforcement academy graduation, and we graduated 7 new police officers, and we had police chiefs and captains from across the state that came because every one of those folks is going right into the workforce. Same with our paramedic academy. There's 100% job placement upon graduation. So, you know, CTC has a history of working very closely with industry, whether it's our aviation program or our diesel program, our welding, to really understand what what is the needs out there of those industries, and how can we really produce the workforce that they need. And that's an evolving process. We recently, with our construction management program, went 100% online because that's where the student demand was, wanting to have more flexibility in taking their classes. So it's going to be an evolving journey, but we're really excited where we're positioned now, and with the leadership that we have with Interim Dean Kevin Alexander and others, CTC is really going to continue to be a more and more important part of our state economy and university.
Thank you. I've got a question about the master plan. What comes first? There was a whole bunch of stuff in the master plan there. What are you building first, Vice Chancellor Queen?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. You know, I think the interesting thing about the master plan is that there are a number of strategies that I think the university is working in parallel or at the same time. Although Vice Chancellor Stern mentioned, you know, it is also true that our number one capital priority is the Trothieta Indigenous Studies Center, and we are putting a lot of cycles. She and her team are putting cycles into that for active efforts to fundraise and partnership and things like that to help put the funding together to be able to start construction on that facility. And so that is one of the things that's top of mind, but it doesn't mean we're not working on other things, because we're a big place, and you know, there's active planning around the child care facility because we have funding in hand for that through our federal processes. And so the design is in progress, and that's something we're stepping forward with. You know, right behind that, you know, we are also actively working on the housing plan so that we can begin work to modernize that, because once we, you know, look at these things in these zones of campus, and then, you know, work with our board and under the direction of our board, you know, pencil them, make sure they work operationally, look at what's on the table, what funding's in hand, what other opportunities we can use to then garner additional funding. You know, we take those things to our board, and then the board will move them forward based on their planning. And so things that we're going to be, you know, teeing up in the next cycle. FY26 is happening right now down in Juneau, and the legislature is negotiating the university and the board's priorities, of which UAF has many things on that list. We are already just now about to kick off the next process in our planning and budget committee for FY27, which will again take a look at that master plan, look at our deferred maintenance and facilities modernization needs, see what happens in FY26, marry that up with 27, then we keep planning in that regard. So, you know, I would say the Trothieta Indigenous Studies Center is our number one capital priority, and we'll keep working at that, but it doesn't slow other efforts to also move these things that have really high return on investment capacity and would really fuel our enrollment and retention efforts. And so housing, the Welcome Center, Student Success Center, you know, things that we have internally been able to invest in as well are moving the needle in that regard too. And those are important not to stop while we're looking at the big vision for the rest of the master plan. So it's all in the basket. We'll just keep moving things forward, as well as different funding opportunities, different grant opportunities, and different things also may present. And we're always monitoring that within the climate.
Okay, I think we have time for two quick questions, and, well, no question is quick, but I'm going to say what the questions are. So, Owen, I'm going to say this, don't answer this question yet. I'm going to ask a different question, but think about this one. How do we make a university education relatable for students, prospective students, who don't think they desire a university education now? Kind of getting to that question of, if there's fewer people going to college, how do we reach out to that group that's not going, that don't see it as relatable? And then I'm going to ask a question, and if Provost Prakash or if Vice Chancellor Connor, the question is around kind of the shift for some faculty or for new faculty to have higher teaching loads, and how that affects the balance of research and teaching or enrollment, how that affects enrollment at UAF if there's a shift from less research to more teaching. How do we think about kind of the faculty workload and enrollment in that balance, and either or both?
Yeah, I'll take a crack on that one first. I think the university here at UAF, we have been really able to proceed and make strides and thrive because of the flexibility that we've imparted in how we assign workloads and how we work through it. I myself was a joint faculty. I have research workload and teaching workload and services tripartite. But also there were times when my research suddenly grew because I've got a grant and it just keeps growing, and it's not a cycle that I control. So I had the flexibility to increase my research workload at that time while finding capacity for someone else to teach in my place at that time. Well, when my research grants grew back down and were on a manageable level, I picked up back on my teaching workload. And that is something that is a discussion with the deans and directors, and we have that pretty open discussion to be able to manage. So within the whole system, we've been able to manage where the teaching workloads and research workloads can be balanced depending on what is going on in the cycle of the teaching needs as well as the research needs of individual faculty.
Vice Chancellor Connor, anything to add to that?
I guess the only thing that I would really add is that this circles back to what you were talking about earlier, Dan. Everything's connected, and so as we grow enrollment, we might have more room for negotiation and workloads, and I think that's going to be really helpful.
Last word goes to Vice Chancellor Guthrie on the question of how do we relate to those who don't see themselves as, or don't relate to the university.
Thank you. I think there's two parts to that. One is the message that, so background on that, Alaska has the distinction of having the lowest rate of post-secondary education enrollment after high school of any state or province in the nation. So we're ranked 53rd, behind Puerto Rico and Guam and every southern state you can't imagine we'd be ranked behind. We're ranked behind them too. That is wonderful as an indicator of the power of our workforce economy. People can get right out of high school and go to work. That's great. How do we help people understand that, yes, you can make cash out of high school, but it may not lead to the long-term lifestyle that you want. A lot of that work is shift work, it's slope work, it's very difficult jobs. We know that post-secondary education is a pathway to a professional lifestyle, which can be maybe the lifestyle you want with your family. So how do we message that as individuals, as a university system, as a state? The future of the economy is mostly a knowledge economy. We know that. How do we help Alaskans get there? The other piece of it is a challenge for us as an institution, I think, is our enrollment age demographics at UAF are bimodal. We have a big pulse of students around 18 to 24, and we have another big pulse around 35. Those are students, people who didn't go to college right away, but they get in the workforce for a while, and now they want to get that credential. How do we, as a university, serve them? Our eCampus has been doing a great job of that for years. We have graduate education. CTC does a great job of that, but we can do better there. So I think that's a great question. There's a number of strategies to make college relevant for the modern Alaskan.
For all Alaskans.
For all Alaskans, even non-modern Alaskans.
All Alaskans. All right. We are at the end of our time. Thank you, everyone who came today. Thank you for your interest and your interest in the vision, your passion for UAF. Thank you to all the faculty who are teaching our students and the researchers and the staff who are supporting and doing the work that keeps this institution running. And thank you to everyone who's online for joining, especially if you're at one of UAF's rural campuses and are beaming this in by Starlink or something else because the fiber optics are cut. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the critical role that you serve. So thank you again, and have a great day.